welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. You may have noticed that the media has kind of had a bit of an internal explosion, what with the transcript between Donald Trump and the Ukrainian government. And of course, there's the initial impetus of this, which was the whistleblower letter, which Nancy Pelosi decided to take and run all the way to impeachment proceedings with, well, at least an investigation. To discuss this and more, we're joined by Liberty Nation's Tim Donner. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, Tim, you believe that the real danger behind this whole, let's call it the kabuki theater of impeachment, has gone largely unreported or unanalyzed, but you feel that it will outlast the initial hysterical charges. What do you think that real danger is, Tim?
Well, first of all, let's put things into proper context. The whistleblower, go ahead and call him a whistleblower, but what he really is a deep state operative. He's a part of the permanent Washington bureaucracy that outlasts all presidents, because these deep state functionaries, they go to Washington and they stay there their whole lives. So they have a certain cocksureness that they can outlast any president. So what you have here, if you really boil it down to something beyond the theatrics, is an unelected, unaccountable, deep state operative intelligence asset, just like the ones used by the Obama administration to spy on the Trump campaign, taking national security and foreign policy into his own hands and leaking, second or third hand revelations which weren't even accurate, leaking them to a bloodthirsty media bent on the identical mission as the Democrats, which is to take Donald Trump down. But that's not the part of it. It's the fact that any member of the deep state with access, first, second, or third hand, to something the president has done or said who objects to it, can now be seen as legitimately being able to leak his own personal feelings about what the president has discussed with world leaders to the media. Think about the danger of that precedent.
Yeah, it baffles the mind, really, that the point is that a government can't function if its functionaries are not willing to play the game of consent to govern, because every decision will be second guessed. I mean, these were classified documents, were they not, Tim?
These were classified documents. This was a classified, supposedly secure conversation between the leaders of two extremely important nations in the world, the lone superpower in the United States and Ukraine, which has been in the middle of so much of the controversy over the last 4 or 5 years, and is again with Joe Biden. Now, while I believe that this is going to come back to bite Biden and the Democrats far more than Donald Trump in the long run, the fact remains that this sets such a dangerous precedent. Think if you're a world leader, Mark. Think if you're Boris Johnson. Think if you're Vladimir Putin. Think if you're Merkel.
I'd rather not.
And you no longer believe that when you have a private conversation with the president of the United States, that it won't be leaked to the media. Private conversations, private communications between world leaders is vital to security, to the security of the world. And what this operative has done here is absolutely beyond the pale. And that's the thing that's the most significant part of this whole story.
Absolutely, Tim. I mean, something that really struck me, though, and you've mentioned this twice already now, is that this is second or third hand or possibly worse information. So it's not as though the actual whistleblower was in the room listening into the conversation. And we can tell this from the inaccuracies that are in the whistleblower letter to, I presumably, the Democrat world sphere. The inaccuracies there show that this wasn't a person who was in the room listening in and this is their first-hand impressions. This is there are enough
second or third hand. I mean, so that makes it even more dangerous, Mark, because it isn't even limited to the suspects for doing something like this, or not even limited to the people in the room who are transcribing the conversation. It's now anybody that they choose to tell tales out of school as they go like a coward and hide under their veil of anonymity and just send it out to some lamb to be led to slaughter who's anxious to tell a bloodthirsty media that the president is corrupt and he tried a quid pro quo, which, by the way, no matter how they want to spin it, there was no quid pro quo, period, full stop.
I mean, the funny thing is here, Tim, is that many people are applauding the, presumably it's a gentleman as the whistleblower, and saying that this is a boon for government transparency. Now, I'm sure, like me, Tim, that you believe that the government should be as transparent as possible within the national security interests. But what's happened here is you have people applauding a whistleblower who is destroying the very concept of transparency up to and including national security, because who is going to allow another person to be in the room if they know that, well, this could leak to a second, third, fourth person and then end up all over the front page of the paper, especially if they're discussing serious concerns of national security.
Well, you notice, Mark, that they've already moved on from quid pro quo, saying there was a quid pro quo. Money was being withheld, foreign aid was being withheld, pending the Ukrainian president's agreement to investigate Joe Biden, when in fact no such thing happened. So now, no less than Adam Schiff, in making a parody of this whole proceeding when he led off the House hearing, Intelligence Committee hearing here today, I mean, incredible. But Adam Schiff is now saying, well, you don't have to establish quid pro quo. So now what they're doing is they're lowering the bar incrementally to the point where they can say just the fact that he even talked to the Ukrainian president is a treasonous act.
Yeah, that's a funny position for the president of the United States to be in.
That's where we are.
Foreign leader. Dangerous stuff. I mean, Adam Schiff, let's be completely blunt here, is a known liar. He said that he had seen evidence of collusion between President Donald Trump and Russia, and has failed to produce that evidence. I wonder why. Could it be because
he had secret access? He knew, and then he never produced it. But you know what, Mark? I mean, the beauty of a democracy, or more specifically a constitutional republic, a country where people can vote to pick their leaders, the beauty of it is that the voters get to decide on this kind of stuff. The Democrats are going to pursue impeachment. They're now in too deep because the Speaker of the House is now on the train, on the impeachment train. So they can't turn back. That's going to happen. Trump's going to deny. The Republicans will mock the Democrats for doing this. But the beauty of a constitutional republic, a democracy, is that the people will vote next November, and they will weigh in, and they will decide on whether the Democrats' singular achievement of perhaps finally impeaching Trump in the House, and then he's, of course, not going to be convicted in the Senate, whether that singular act is enough to justify electing a Democratic president, or whether it will do what I think you and I and most of us at Liberty Nation believe it will do, which is to simply assure Donald Trump's reelection.
Yeah, I would say that's the most likely outcome. Although, as you know, Tim, I've never met a conspiracy theory I didn't like. So perhaps they don't want to be in power come 2020, and this is all part of a cunning plan.
Well, I think
in Donald Trump's reelection.
In some sense, I think you're actually right. And that is that I've believed for some time now with the lunatic socialist proposals like the Green New Deal, which would bankrupt the economy overnight, with these kind of ideas, I really believe they do think in their heart of hearts they're not going to beat Trump. but they have a damn good shot at 2024, and they're thinking ahead to that and trying to lay a socialist framework to the election of 2024, so it'll go down easier then because it was introduced now.
Actually, I think you might be right there, Tim. Jeff Charles on LibertyNation.com wrote a very interesting piece about how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't actually want Donald Trump to be impeached, but for her and her backs of the Justice Democrats, this is by pushing the party to impeach. If it works, then she can say, well, congratulations me, I got this through. If it doesn't work, she can say, well, you saw how long they took to get started on this. It's their own fault because they're the old guard. And then her and her ilk, but possibly not her herself, are in a very good position, as you say, for 2024. Tim, your final thoughts on this. Is the damage reversible?
I don't believe the damage or the Pandora's box that was opened with the leaking to the broader media of a secure conversation between two world leaders that should have never been made public. That Pandora's box is not going to be closed, Mark, because do you think the Republicans are going to go soft? Will they, when there's now a Democratic president, will they do the same thing? Well, the Democrats are almost goading them to. And this is a Pandora's box, I'm afraid, that's been opened and cannot be closed again.
Tim, thank you for your insight. Much appreciated having you here.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you to you at home for watching. If you enjoyed this, if you learned a little bit of something, you can click the subscribe button down below, or you can head over to LibertyNation.com, where we have some great articles by and including Tim Donner himself. We have more TV, more radio, and some fantastic podcasts. Hope to see you there. Thanks again.